Video D4, Information Goods. In today's economy, information goods play an increasingly prominent role and make us think hard about how we use the ideas of supply and demand to represent their unique characteristics. Let's start by just thinking about the supply curve that we use for traditional goods. That is, goods which have an upward sloping supply curve representing a marginal cost, showing that the cost of producing the next unit is constantly increasing. This is our example of a traditional good. In contrast, an information good has very low or almost zero costs of reproduction. That is, the next person, the next consumer of the good, can enjoy it at virtually no additional cost. Think about the listener to a radio broadcast. Think about the user of software. Think about the next person in a movie theater or the next listener to a music album. In this case, the supply curve and marginal cost are very, very low relative to other costs, and moreover, they are constant and do not increase as we increase the number of people who are able to enjoy the item. This type of good, with very low and constant marginal costs of production, we term an information good. We can take a slightly more nuanced look at traditional goods versus information goods, again by starting with, in this case, a more realistic supply curve representing traditional production costs for a typical good. We may have relatively constant production costs up to some level, at which point there become capacity constraints. In this case, our supply curve has fundamentally two parts to it. One indicating additional goods can be produced for about the same cost per unit, but at some point costs may start to increase and perhaps increase rather substantially per unit. In contrast to this for information goods, we again are going to consider a supply curve that illustrates reproduction costs that are very low relative to other costs that are involved, and there are no significant capacity constraints. Now, the added information that we can provide here also includes the average cost of production, which includes within it the setup costs or the fixed costs, those overhead costs that need to be covered by the firm. Looking first at traditional goods, that means that the average cost curve is going to be falling towards those constant marginal costs until we start hitting the supply constraints, and then the increasing marginal costs start bringing up the average cost. In contrast, information goods typically have very high setup costs, which can be recovered only by producing at large volumes. Moreover, average cost will continue to fall and never fall to the level of marginal cost because we never have that increasing cost per unit. What does this mean in terms of the market as a whole? One of the things that we begin with is that the cost of producing additional goods is going to be very low, so the producer's decision hinges really entirely on revenue considerations. Secondly, we see immediately that at larger levels of production, there are always falling average costs. So this means that there are really economies of scale here, and there are great advantages to being large. If information producing firms are large and effectively have monopolies or significant market power for the production of their goods relative to the scale of the market determined by how much people want to purchase the good, then what that means is that the decision on pricing falls to the firm that is producing the information good. Well, if the decision on pricing falls to that firm, then they are going to choose to set price far above marginal cost, perhaps, in order to exploit the market power they have and earn profits that are available in the production of their information good.